Hello gang, Tattooed Biker here with you, and tonight we have to talk about cryptid canines. Whether you call them Dogman, upright canines, werewolves, or whatever your preferred term is, people are seeing these creatures at an alarming rate. And tonight I have 5 real reports and sighting stories to share with you, sent in by real people just like you. From places like Texas, Indiana, Minnesota, Montana, and Pennsylvania. But before we get started, do me a favor. Smack the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and then grab your boots and let's ride to Cryptid Country. Dear Biker, when I lived in West Texas, I had an experience with what I always called a werewolf. I was in college at the time and driving home around 11 p.m. from my job. There was a huge cattle field behind the development where I lived, and I sometimes preferred going the back way home because it was more scenic. I don't even recall if there was a full moon. That's when I saw what looked like a cow by the fence, and I decided to scare it. I pulled over and started laying on my horn. Now, I don't remember if I heard anything, I just remember what I saw. That thing suddenly got up, and it had to be over 7 feet tall, and I just sat there staring at it, and it was staring at me before it took off running. I immediately sped home, and I remembered how terrified I was to even get out of the car. I didn't have a garage clicker, and I knew it would take me forever to unlock the door. Well, it hadn't followed me, so I assumed I was okay. I don't remember how long it was after the incident, but I was running on my usual trail that snaked around the front of the development, and there was a huge cow leg laying there in the dirt. Clearly way too big to be related to coyotes or any other animal. I just always assumed anything that could kill and dismember a cow would have to be much larger. That was the last time I experienced something that I related to that. We ended up moving not too long after, but to this day I still think of it. Signed, Kent. Hello, Tattooed Biker. A man I know up north from here steered me to you. He said you are interested in these things, so I'm emailing you my story. I live in Taylor's Falls, Minnesota, and I was driving north on Wild Mountain Road around 7 a.m. on January the 2nd. I was heading for the ski area when I saw some kind of animal running in the field towards the river. I pulled off the road and grabbed my binoculars. This thing looked like a large wolf, but it was, well, different. By the time some guy in a truck pulled up and was wondering what I was looking at, I told him that I thought there was a large wolf out in the field. He got out of the truck and asked to use the binoculars. He said he didn't think it was a wolf, and that it looked like it was chasing something. We stood there for a few minutes watching. It would run into the woods and then pop back into the field for a bit. The light was starting to get better, so I grabbed my parka and started to walk closer to get a better look. The other guy said he had to leave, but again, he didn't think it was a wolf. I was about a half mile from the ski area, near one of the trail roads, and I started to walk towards the river. I was maybe 100 feet from where I saw the animal from the road when I heard an owl screech coming from the woods over to my right. On the edge of those woods, this huge dog came running out of the trees. Now, the best way to describe it was that it looked like a big hyena, but it ran on 2 back legs and hunched over. It had this woolly black hair all over its body and a long, thick tail. This thing was huge. It must have weighed more than 200 pounds. I've been in the woods all my life, and I've never seen anything like this. It looked over at me, but continued running from left to right in front of me. It also made this steady, loud panting sound as it ran. I turned on a pivot and dashed out of there, hoping that this thing wouldn't chase me. When I got to the car, an old man had pulled off and stood there watching me. He wondered what I was doing. I yelled at him to get the hell out of here. I said that a monster dog was out there. I think he believed me because the look on his face showed fear, like he knew something was really out there. I never did go to that ski area. Instead, I went back home all shaken up and asking myself what I saw. Now, I've read the stories about the Michigan Dogman, and something that you had one about being seen in Wisconsin. What do you think this was? There is no wolf or any other animal native to the area. Please don't use my name if you pass this along. This is my work email, and I can send you another later. The guy who sent me your email address told me that there was a sighting last year, just west of Duluth. He said it was a hunter who came across it while tracking deer he had shot. Now, I don't know the details, but if it looked like the animal I saw, well, I'm sure he got the hell out of there. Thanks. Signed, Anonymous. Hello, Mr. Biker. I saw something when I was around 15 and living in southeastern Montana. We lived on the outskirts of a small town, and I'd often go for long walks at night. There was this one spot on my normal walking route that, well, just always seemed off. It was 2 or 3 bare lots, overgrown with brush, and right at the lots, the asphalt turned to gravel that, for some reason, just terrified me. It wasn't only me, though. Everyone that I talked to hated walking past those lots. On the other side of the road from these lots was about 20 feet of land and then a canal that was empty that time of year. Well, I was walking one summer night with a flashlight since we didn't have streetlights. As I approached the edge of the road and the beginning of the lots, my flashlight started to flicker and went out. About that time, I hear this truck come barreling around the corner, and they were curved in the hills so you couldn't see around them. This white truck stopped on the gravel road right in front of me, and its headlights were blinding. I didn't recognize the truck, so my first thought was that I was about to be kidnapped. I could just barely see the man inside, and I realized he wasn't looking at me. I turned around to see 3 large, upright, wolf-looking creatures moving from behind a tree. They were all hunched over and would extend one large clawed hand. Not a clawed paw, mind you, but like a clawed human hand, in unison, as if to feel their way before doing some weird hop-drag thing forward. These things all moved the exact same way, and they moved directly to the canal and disappeared into it. I looked back at the truck, and the guy hit the gas, spitting out his tires on the gravel before bolting. I was left there in the dark for a minute when my flashlight suddenly came back on. It would have been quicker to walk past those lots to get home, but instead I turned and ran the other way. There was this one area that led back to these sheer rock faces, and there was a cave back there that people would go drinking at. As I passed that area, I heard rustling in the bushes, and that's when I saw another one of these creatures cross the road there. As I finally got to my house and was throwing open the door, I could hear a low, deep growling sound behind me. I ran inside, bolted the door, and I never went on night walks again. Signed, Eddie. Dear TB, I had a strange encounter about 8 years ago, up in Miami County, Indiana. I'm not even sure what it was or could have been, but it is what I saw and what happened, even though I've tried to write it off as something logical for all these years, and I still just can't explain it away. This happened in February 2017. I used to work third shift at a warehouse. The main day shift supervisor was on vacation, so our boss on the night shift decided she wanted to leave early, and she let us sneak off about 2 hours earlier than our normal shift end time. So this would have been between 4:30 and 5 a.m. I was following a coworker on this country road as the warehouse was on the outskirts of my small hometown. I noticed as he hit his brakes and proceeded to swerve off the road. Now I'm probably 1,000 feet behind him, and I'm just thinking to myself, what the heck is this dude doing? And that's when I saw it. There was a tall, dark shape strolling down the middle of the road in a hunched over and swaying side-to-side manner. I've likened it to how one of those tall, windblower figures you see swaying at a car dealership moved. It all looked very unnatural, and it looked like a tall person wrapped in a large dark blanket or cloak. I had to hit the brakes and swerve too, but I came to a full stop. Whatever it was, I couldn't make out any features or characteristics. I saw a large torso with 2 legs. The upper half was hunched forward, like it was leaning, like maybe an older person would do with a walker. Now at that time I was driving a 1998 Ford Explorer, and I've looked up the height of the vehicle, and it listed as around 67 inches, but whatever walked past my driver's window was a good foot or 2 higher than that, and leaning forward. So I believe that whatever walking there was at least 7 feet tall. I couldn't see a head or any arms, just a figure with legs walking. My taillights illuminated it as I started to drive past it. My coworker had pulled over into a parking lot a little ways down the road, and I followed him in, and you could tell that he was scared. He was saying something along the lines of, "What was that? I couldn't see its head." Those words, among, well, a lot of other things that most panicked people might say. We decided to drive back down and see if it was still there, and maybe find out what it actually was. I drove in front, and he followed me. We came up to the general area, and I noticed a large black animal lying in the middle of the road. It appeared to be a large black dog, but part of me knew that it wasn't large enough to be what was walking in the road, but we still had to stop because it was directly in the middle of the roadway. I decided to get out and walk up to it. All the while my coworker was yelling at me to get back in the vehicle. As I approached it, whatever it was, it brings its head up and looks back at me. Its eyes are glowing yellow, which I write off as just eye shine from the headlights, but then it growls at me. So I stop dead in my tracks and just watch. This thing proceeds to stand up on its back legs like a person, but then falls back down. It sits back up and then hobbles off to the side of the road like a wounded animal that wasn't able to use its front legs. Its head looked like your typical German Shepherd wolf type, but its fur was puffy like a chow dog. This thing was a lot bigger than any dog I've ever seen, but still nowhere near as tall as whatever was walking down the road. I didn't see any blood or wounds, so I can't say if it was actually hurt or not. My coworker had gotten out of the car at this point after it had disappeared into the woodline. We discussed what the heck just happened, got back in our vehicles, and drove off. The next day at work, I mentioned what happened, and our coworkers laughed at us. So the other guy who saw it told me that if I didn't stop talking about it, he was going to just deny it, and so I better just forget about it. So now, for 8 years, I've never told anyone until just recently. I have no idea what it was, and the skeptical side of me doesn't fully believe in these things, or exist, or think they're possible. But I still have no logical explanations. It sounds crazy, and again, I would be highly skeptical had I not witnessed this myself. Signed, Travis. Now, as many of you know, I live in Pennsylvania, and the area around Northumberland has had its share of strange occurrences over the years. In particular, the Todd C's possible UFO abduction and subsequent death case. But there's also an older story from the mid-1800s that involves a possible werewolf. The early German farming communities throughout Pennsylvania were plagued by wolf attacks on their livestock. Young May Paul lived on a modest farm with her reserved family near Northumberland, Pennsylvania. May's significant responsibilities around the farm included herding and tending to the family sheep. The young lady was well liked throughout the tiny community, and she had no trouble making friends. However, she quietly caught the attention of an elder gentleman whom everyone was very fearful of. He would often be seen following the young lady around town, as well as watching her from afar as she tended to the flocks. Their kinship seemed strange and disturbing to many, but never seemed to cross any boundaries. As strange occurrences began to occur on surrounding farms, the Paul family farm seemed to stay safe. Wolf attacks on the surrounding sheep herds were becoming commonplace, and onslaughts were being reported in broad daylight. Yet the Paul family stayed safe from any encounters and didn't suffer a single casualty. Due to the recent attacks on the docile creatures, bounties were being paid to hunters who could produce dead corpses. Well, late one evening, a nearby neighbor spotted the glowing eyes of a wolf being lit by the full moon. The man quickly retrieved his rifle and let off a fiery blast. The yelp and cries from the wolf echoed for acres. Feeling content that a predator had been taken care of, the man retired for the evening. The following day, early dawn, the man trudged across his land until he found a blood trail. Through a thicket of trees, he followed the crimson trail until he came upon the body of the elder gentleman. The man lay dead from a single gunshot wound to the abdomen. When the community got wind of what had happened, locals immediately branded the hermit a werewolf. Hadn't he always been strange and secretive, living alone and keeping to himself? They buried his body in the dirt floor of his cabin, christening the spot Die Wolfman's Grab, which translates to the Wolfman's Grave. Strangely enough, May Paul never lost a single sheep to wolf attack, even though, quite often, a large gray wolf would be seen menacingly around the perimeters of her property, staring ominously at the woman from afar. And there it is. All the true reports and sightings of cryptid canines, dogmen, or werewolves that I have for you tonight. So, what do you think about these? As always, I'm anxious to read your thoughts and theories down in the comments below, but please, keep it respectful to the witnesses. And if you have an unexplained encounter that you'd like to share, just send it to the email address in the description and, well, your story may just wind up in a future video. Anyways, thanks so much for riding with me tonight. I really appreciate you. And until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and well, I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker out.